So there we have the bauble. I think it looks fantastic. I hope you enjoy building these as much as I have. I'm sorry I haven't been able to do a design video on how to design this from scratch. I will do, but it's going to have to be next year now. Like I said, I haven't had time to get something sorted prior to the release of this video. Hello and welcome to MBWK. This video is purely a build video for my 3D Christmas ornaments. First of all, if you're here from Etsy, thank you so much for purchasing my file. It really means a lot. If you could leave a review on my page, that would be fantastic. The more 5-star reviews I can get, the better. So thank you in advance if you leave a review on my Etsy page. If you've clicked on this video from YouTube and you're just interested in this design, like I said, I'm really sorry I haven't done a design tutorial on this. There will be one next year, but if you are interested in this, then the only way that you're going to be able to get this is if you go onto my Etsy page. I'll leave a link in the description. So thank you in advance as well. But let's get into it. So the first thing is this is made out of 3mm material. It should be absolutely fine for 1/8 of an inch material because they're just the imperial and metric versions of one another. There's a slight discrepancy in thickness of that material. Just one thing to note, the material, I've got to move all of this. 3mm material doesn't always mean that they're always going to be 3mm. This MDF is sold as 3mm. It is actually 3.15mm. I know it doesn't sound a lot, but it can make a difference. This maple veneered plywood is also advertised as 3mm thick, and it's 2.97, so it's the closest to 3mm. And the walnut is actually 3.2mm thick. So they're all sold as 3mm material, but they all differ in size, and that's going to be something that we're going to be addressing in Lightburn to make sure that this goes together as best as possible. So there might be an issue with the material that you use, but I have made baubles from all 3 of those different sizes. So if you have a varying thickness, you should be able to get around it with this tutorial. Just going to go across to another screen. So once you've purchased and downloaded your file, you may need to export it to somewhere that you want to store your files, but it'll be under 3D Christmas Baubles. If you double click on that, you'll find that there's 4 different file formats. So there's the Lightburn file, which I'll be using in this instance. We've got DXF, SVG, and AI formats. So hopefully it'll tend to most of your needs. If you just double click on the file, you'll be brought into, in my case, Lightburn. And this is what is going to be in the file. We're going to have a kerf test, which is going to be the first thing that I'm going to be walking through from the get-go, because we need to overcome the potential issues of the material thickness. And then here we have the 10 different bauble types. So we've got one, so these are the cages, or what I call the cages. Then we have the center part of the scene. So here we have the mountain, we've got the moon and the stars, which is the most awkward one, just saying off the bat straight away. It's the most awkward one to fit together, but I'll be doing that one in the tutorial build of this video. We've got the mountain again, we've got a snowflake, a tree center, and a building center as well, just down here. And then we've got the middle part of the scene. We've got 3 different sets of trees for the landscapes. We've got this one here. We've got a bare tree here. We've got a Christmas tree. So there's actually 4 different types of tree for the middle. And then we have this one here. And then we have the foreground part of the scene, which is here we have the polar bears. We've got the fox with the snowman. We've got a couple of kids playing in the snow with the snowballs. We've got a penguin rolling a snowball with a snowman as well. And then we've got a couple of Santa Claus front scenes, and we've got 2 deers. So we've got this one here, deer laying down, and the 2 deers standing up. And then we have a squirrel with a pair of nuts on the side. And we have a family of penguins with a small snowman here. So they are the files. I have grouped them together into the baubles that I've made in the background here. I have made every single one, so I know, well, I've made every single one multiple times already, so I know that they fit together well. Just need to make sure that the settings are right for your material and your laser, because every laser is different as well. That being said, you don't need to use these groups. So although I've got the polar bear with the trees and the mountain, you can swap this mountain out and put the Starry Night Sky with the moon in instead. You can swap these trees over for a Christmas tree instead. It's very customizable. You don't have to use the same thing. So although there is 10 sets of baubles, there's multiple different ones that you can do. Loads and loads and loads of different variations. So yeah, that is the package. Once you bring it in, this is what you would have purchased. So first of all, what we have is the kerf test. That means you'll be getting the top of the bauble. Let me just bring this to full screen. What you'll be doing is cutting out the top of the bauble and the bottom, but all that's going to do is make sure that everything is as it needs to be before you start cutting out all of that material when it comes to assembling this, because the worst thing that can happen is that you cut the bauble out and it doesn't fit together well. So that is what the kerf test is. You will get those 6 parts of the cage, which are these legs here, and there'll be 2 components. I don't have any spare at the moment, but it's these 2 layers here. If it'll focus, it's these 2 layers here. One will have a round hole. If I can bring up the other screen. One's got a round hole, which is what the cage leg clips onto. And then we have the round one with the square hole. Focus, please. Then we have the round one with the square hole, which sits on the top. From there, we have the tab and the slot, and that's basically going to replicate the base and the scenery that is going to be placed on the base. And all we need to do with that is make sure that this slots in nicely without too much friction. All of this is going to be held in with CA glue, so it goes off extremely quickly. And when it comes to the tops of the baubles, ideally we want this looser rather than tighter, because there's nothing more frustrating than having components that are really, really tight and it's making things a nightmare to put together. So I'm going to go through the settings for kerf offset. So if you double click on the green or red layer, so the green and red layers in Lightburn for this file are going to be the inner and outer cuts. For the kerf offset for my laser engraver and the material that I'm using specifically is minus 0.06 for the green layer, and 0.1, so plus 0.1, which is an outward cut for the red layer. And I know that if I put that across to the machine, that's going to cut things out and it's going to be slightly loose, which means I'm not going to have any issues putting it together. I'm not going to have any breakages, but it's something that you will have to hone to get the right settings for your own machine. I probably cut 5 of these and I play about with kerf offset all of the time. So if you're doing kerf offset for the very first time, I know there's a couple of programs like boxes.py. They have a kerf test on there, and there's a couple of tutorials on YouTube how to go about using that. If you're already fairly knowledgeable when it comes to your laser engraver, hopefully you have some sort of baseline. So yeah, that's kerf offset sorted. So just a quick one, when it comes to the cuts and layers window, you need to make sure that the engraving are set out the way mine is on screen. So it's black, blue, green, red, and the T2 layer. The T2 layer is just this kerf offset text. Anything that shouldn't be cut out is in, or engraved is in, that T2 tool. So that way, if you accidentally take the kerf test text across to the machine, it won't cut it out. The black layer for mine is things like the outline of these polar bears and on the kids playing in the snow, and it's all these little bits and pieces that are engraved. The blue layer is just an engraved line. Again, you will have to change your settings for what's required from your machine. So my cut and engraved settings are going to be different to yours, so make sure that you change those. But you need to do it in this order. Then we have the green layer, which are the internal cuts. And the reason why I put all the internal cuts on a green layer is sometimes the machine will cut an outside layer first and then try and cut the inside of the project afterwards. And if that outside layer gets cut first, your material can move in the workspace and then the internal cuts are cut oddly. So I try to make sure in my files that all the internal cuts are on a different layer. It also means that if you do use 2 different types of material, you can change this slot right here. to make it a different width so it can accommodate for a different thickness of material. Just a nice little tip if you do design your own files, that might be something that you want to include. So we just need to make sure that the green layer and the engraving layers are above this red layer. The red layer needs to be what gets cut out last, and that way there won't be any issues with that. If your file comes in with these in a different order, what you can do is just click on, so say the green layer is below the red layer, just for argument's sake, just click on the green layer, and with the arrows on the right hand side in the cuts and layers window, just press the up arrow to bring that layer above the red layer. Because in that cuts and layers window, whatever you have at the top will be engraved first, or cut first. That'll be its first operation, and then when it gets to the bottom of the list here in the T2, if that was on the workspace, that would be the last operation that the laser engraver does. So that's it for the settings and bits and pieces inside Lightburn. I'm going to take you across to the overhead cam view for the building part of the video. I just want to say quickly, thank you very much if you have purchased the file and you have made your way to YouTube to see how to build it. If you're here from YouTube and you're thinking about purchasing the file, I will leave a link in the description so you can go and check it out. And thank you so much in advance. If I could ask you a favor, if you do purchase that file and you enjoy building these, please take a second just to leave a review on my Etsy page. That does me a massive, massive favor. So thank you in advance once again, and I shall see you over at the build table. So onto the assembly side. For this part, I'm going to be putting together this Fox and Snowman one with the moon and star background. The reason why I'm going to be doing that one is because it's the most difficult out of the lot. It's very tight with how this centerpiece marries up to the sides of the framework of the bauble. So first of all, we need to go through the test cuts. So here we have the tab and slot, which is reference to the base and our scenery bits. It basically just means that we don't have to waste all of this material. So this tab and slot basically saves us on that until we get our settings dialed in. And with the tab and slot, we just want it so it slots in nice and securely. We don't want it over tight, otherwise we can end up damaging this. And also when it comes to putting these framework parts together, we don't want it too tight. If it's a little bit looser, that's better because we can secure it with our glue. If it's too tight, it'll become really frustrating, and that's not what the aim of this project is. It's supposed to be fun, not frustrating. So for that, the test, because although this walnut one looks like it goes together quite easily with the framework, when it comes to putting the last locking tab in, with this walnut, it's way too tight. So I just want to show you that quite quickly. Just bear with me. There we go. So that's all the framework in. Again, it's just this top section here. So we're not wasting all of this material to just find out that it doesn't work. So this is the locating part on top, which secures the eyelet for your ribbon or string, whatever you're going to do. So that's going to pop straight in there. When it comes to popping this bit in, if the cuts aren't loose enough, again, this is going to be more difficult when you have all of the scenery inside the bauble itself. So if you can't get this on easy enough as it is now, so if you can't get it in easy enough, you're going to struggle putting it together once all of the scenery is inside the bauble. So that to me is too tight. It's almost like a perfect fit, but it's too tight for this project. What we want is, with this maple, just go through the same principle again. Just slotting these bits of framework on the test. So we want to be slotting it onto the segment that has the round hole in it, not the square hole, because these cutouts are longer on the top piece. So you can see how much looser this is, and believe me, it's easier to put it together like this than it is when it's really, really tight. So when we pop the top on, just going to line it up, and you see how easy that was just to slot in. And all we need to do is just secure it with a little bit of CA glue on the top, and that's not going to move. And you can even stick your bit on the top, your eyelet on the top if you really want to. So that's it for the test side. Until you get it to that point, I wouldn't go any further. I would make sure it's pretty much as loose as what this is. From here, what you can do is apply a finish to it if you like. I will say if you apply finish to this after you've cut it out, your tests might not work. They might not go together the same. I've used an oil on this. If you use an oil, it penetrates the fibers and can make it thicker. And again, if you're applying coats of lacquer to it, that's going to increase the thickness as well. So that could make it as tight as what this is if you've made it this loose. That's what I found with this one. So from there, once you've cut out all of your components, we've got our base, we've got our what I call the mid scenery, which are the two trees for this fox one. Then we have our outside scenery pieces, which are the fox and the snowman. Then we have the rest of our framework. So there should be 6 pieces of the cage. And then we have the 2 inner pieces, the 2 outer of the tops, and then we have our eyelet. So you don't have to do it out of contrasting woods. I do like the effect that it has. Just bear in mind that the 2 different coloured woods can be different thicknesses, so just bear that in mind when it comes to doing your tests. Just make sure that your different type of wood fits with the other. So from here, what we're going to do is just set up the scene first. So we're going to start off with the centerpiece. You can glue these in if you want. I'm not going to for the sake of speed. Again, if you need to, so I've got a bit of charring on the back here of this tree. If you want to address that with a bit of sandpaper just to knock that charring off, you can do. Just be careful if you're using a veneered wood, because you can blast through that veneered layer. And then we're just going to set the scene out. So we're just going to slip those into those grooves one by one until our scene's in place. Fox and snowman. And just when it comes to fitting these, just try to put the pressure on that center part of the base. If you apply pressure to these, you might break something off, like I did off camera with this fox. It's actually got a break where his legs are. So just make sure to put the pressure in the middle. There we go. And just the fox. Easier to rest it on something. Trying to do it for the camera. There we go. So your scene is already built. Nice and simple. So the next part that we're going to be using is this little round one with the round hole in the center, not the square one, not the round one with the square in. This is going to be on the top. This is going to be on the middle, which the cage is going to be connected to. I'm just going to be using CA glue to hold things together. So what I'm going to do is apply a small amount of glue onto the inside there, just a dab. And the CA glue goes off so quick. It's one of the reasons why I love using it. Just going to apply a little bit of pressure there. And whilst that's drying, I can then do the next one. Small amount of glue on there. Just wait for the camera to stop shaking because I knocked it. And again, just applying a little bit of pressure. That first one's already gone off, by the way. We're just going to pop 3 in to begin with. Making sure that the notches are at the bottom. And again, just apply a little bit of pressure and it will soon have gone off. Then we need to take the second one of our round discs with a round hole in, and we're just going to do the same on the bottom. So I'm just going to apply a small amount of glue on these cages. I think I just had a power cut. Yep. It's the second one today. Right. A little bit of glue in on these 3 parts of the cage. And then pop that centerpiece in. There we go. And we can just give that a couple of seconds and that'll be dry as well. Now we don't want to do any more than 3 because it's going to be very difficult to get our scene in the middle of it. So if you want to, you can apply a little bit of glue to the base there, but we're just going to bend these in, and this is, like you can see here, how tight it really is. So if we put the rest of the cage bits on, we wouldn't be able to assemble it any further. But you can see how it's seated here. What you're aiming for is the bottom corner to be flush. Again, it's not going to matter too much because it depends how loose or how tight you're applying it. And then from there, once you've got your scene in place, we're just going to put a dab of glue top and bottom. And then we're going to introduce the next bit of cage. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky, which is on this side. Oh, we just knocked the camera again. So we want to get the top on first and just pull that into place. And another power cut, so that's handy. And we're back on again. I'll have to run it off the battery. So there we go. And then we just want to tease this bit down until we get it on the bottom. So that's going to be the hardest part, is to put the opposite side in to this centerpiece. It's a little bit easier with the other ones because this isn't completely surrounded by any of the other centerpieces, like this mountain. You've actually got places to put your fingers and bits and pieces. So, like I say, this is the most difficult one to assemble. And then we're just going to do the last 2. Again, just a little bit of CA glue. If you don't have CA glue, you can use like a toothpick and PVA glue. So you can just pop a small amount of glue on the end of a toothpick and work that into the corners of your joints. I've just put this in upside down, don't do that. See how nice and easy that goes together when it's a little bit looser. That's what we're aiming for, because the glue is going to hold it in place. Again, we're just going to apply a little bit of pressure until the glue goes off. And then we're on to the last bit of cage. Small amount of glue, top and bottom. Make sure it's the right way around this time. Slots in, lovely. Just apply a little bit of pressure on those 2 points. Wait until the glue goes off. Should be good there. I mean, that's looking really good already. I like to do this next bit on top first, just in case there's any issues, and then you've got a spare left over to pop in there if necessary. So what we're going to do is make sure that it's aligned the right way. So our scene is running vertically on camera at the moment. We need to make sure that this square is lined up with these 2 grooves opposite, because if we pop it on this way, our bauble is actually going to be at an angle. If I show you like this, there we go. Our bauble will actually sit at an angle because this square is off center. So we need to make sure that we rotate it around so it's in the right place. All we're going to do is add a tiny bit of CA glue on the top here. You can apply as much or as little as you want. Again, this is just a demonstration video. I don't really need to glue anything together. Again, just make sure everything is lined up correctly. And this should just nicely sit into place, just like that. Perfect. Then we can flip it over and do exactly the same on the bottom. And that's just going to help reinforce our bauble. It's going to give it a nice flat top. Just knock the camera again, I'm sorry. Again, make sure that that square is lined up with the way that these slots are lined up. If I just show you once more, it can fit in like this, but the slot is diagonal to the slots on the base. So you just need to make sure that it's right for the top. Don't really need to put this bottom bit on at all, but it's there, so it's entirely up to you. Right, so for the, what do you call it? For the eyelet on the top, just going to apply a tiny bit of glue, grab the eyelet and slot it in the top. And there we are. All sorted. And I must say that looks really cool. So there we have the bauble. I think it looks fantastic. I hope you enjoy building these as much as I have. I'm sorry I haven't been able to do a design video on how to design this from scratch. I will do, but it's going to have to be next year now. Like I said, I haven't had time to get something sorted prior to the release of this video. So thank you very much for purchasing this file if you have done. If you have purchased the file, please consider giving my shop a 5-star review. If you think it deserves it, it will really, really help me out. Any issues, please let me know. There shouldn't be. I should cover everything that's needed to know in this video. But if you have any queries, just get in contact and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you. And thank you so much once again, and I shall see you in the next video.